Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Munro Live. Here we are in front of the body in white for the Mach-E. So Ben told me that quite a number of you have asked what is a body in white. Body in white is an old-fashioned term that we used to use. It's sometimes now called a monocoque, or it's got a lot of different names. But anyways, the body in white name came from a long time ago when they used to check the body by painting it white to look for flaws. Since then, BIW is what a lot of people call it in the business. So right here is the body in white as we're going to be going through it. So today what we're going to be looking at is this massive structure, and because I've been out gallivanting around in Oregon, Ben's going to be doing most of the talking, but because he and his team have been working on it. But for me, my first reaction when I started looking at this is massive. If this doesn't have a 5-star crash rating, it will. I'm pretty sure it will. So Ben, why don't you take it over and talk about maybe the crush cans or that shotgun or whatever.
I will. We'll start off with some of the crash ratings. It does not have a government rating yet for 5 stars. That's still pending later this year. It has gone through the IIHS testing, and it has received a good rating for all of the impact tests that they perform. So it's trending towards 5-star rating when that does come out.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the weight first.
The weight, yeah, the weight
is astounding to me.
This, as we weighed the body in white right now, it does have the glass on it. We were at 399 kilograms. When we take out
for those folks who don't speak metric, what's that, about 4,000?
Or no, just the body in white is about 875 pounds. 875 for just the body in white, and it comes out to 4,500 pounds for the entire vehicle. It's the curb weight when it rolls out the door. So it is a very heavy vehicle, a large body in white. As I said, we're just under 400 kilograms as we weighed it right now, and we estimate it's at 380 kilograms for just the body in white once we removed the glass.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. How would this compare to, say, the old Taurus?
From a weight standpoint of the vehicle, it's a little bit heavier than the old Taurus still. It's about 500 pounds heavier. Those were about 4,000 pounds, the most recent generation of Taurus that was out there. So that was a big boat of a sedan for those of you that aren't familiar with it, but it was this is heavier again. You get into batteries and adding all the weight that batteries bring to a vehicle.
How about the F-150? How does it compare?
F-150s actually come out 4,000 to 5,000 pounds out the curb weight when they're released. So this is pretty much equivalent to a middle of the road F-150.
Cool.
So you've got a smaller crossover SUV that weighs the same as a full-size truck does.
Wow. Okay,
and that's what leads into a lot of these large-looking members up front. So we have the rails that are up front here, and as you can see, these are much bigger, as we were talking about, much bigger than what a typical ICE vehicle is. That's because we're running about 30% heavier to go to BEV in this design, and there's 10% reduction in crush area. So they have to go to larger areas. They have a bigger thickness, and they've gone to advanced high-strength steel for these areas. This helps protect the battery. That's what they're doing with everything in this body in white design, is preventing impingement into the batteries. You don't want a cell to get punctured. You can get a short, and shorts is what creates the battery fires, so they are doing everything they can to protect the battery modules.
I noticed that they're using quite a number of 3T. A T3 or a 3T means that there's 3 layers of material that you're trying to weld through. Normally, we try and avoid that, but I noticed that here there's quite a bit of it. Again, you do that for strength. Yeah.
And yep, there is a lot of 3 thickness welds and 2 thickness spot welds. This is primarily put together with spot welds. They do vary the spot weld size as they go through. So some of the 2T thicknesses have less pressure than other places that are right next to it with with the same 2T thickness. So again, going back to the front of the vehicle, you have the shotgun that comes down and ties into this same plate. The front impact beam would be here. And again, transferring the load from a front impact, some of it will go into the rail, some of it will go up into the shotgun, up into the front hinge pillar and the A-pillar. So they're distributing that load. Traditionally, ICE vehicles will only have one rail coming up here for the crosscar beams, but they need to protect what's underneath the vehicle a lot more in this than what they traditionally have had to do.
Well, this is going to be great for SORB as well.
Yes, it's
the shotgun is. Yeah.
Yep, there's an impact beam that helps with that, with the rigid barrier offset test. And then there's another plate that is just by your knee there that's also helping with the SORB that's been bolted in. We talked about that quite a bit in a previous video about the SORB test and how that will help enable it.
That is huge.
There's a bracket here that's used to mount the front of the fender. You can see a weld nut that's been welded in place. There's a fastener that holds that in place. There's also a hole that's over here for a hood bumper. But you've got a couple of pieces here that don't do anything. So these two holes don't serve a purpose. You could cut this down, make it much smaller, and integrate this in. Right now you have a two-piece weldment for this bracket. You could take the fender mount portion of it and incorporate it into the rest of the mount that is for the hinge or the hood bumper.
Yeah, so in essence, you'd be going from two pieces to one piece. And normally, the guys that work on this, I think at nighttime, what they do is they do origami. but what you do is you lay it out in the flat, and then, or you start out with, I need this and I need that. And then what they do is they work it out so that they'll have the stiffness and bend the brackets so that one piece is all you really would need here. I don't know what that box section would be used for. I don't see why I'd need to have that kind of strength, but maybe the guy looked at all the rest of the stuff and said, throw a couple extra pounds on, no big deal. Or a couple of pounds, a couple of ounces. Yeah.
And then as we move back, we'll take a look into through the driver door at the dash panel. The one thing of notice in the dash panel is the dash to hinge pillar reinforcement here. You can see on the other side as well, the piece that sticks out there, that's transferring load. Again, this is taking from a front impact, bringing the forces back, and the door has a crash reinforcement that's in it, so it's transferring weight or force into the door. So they're, again, doing a little bit different ways of transferring the force back into the vehicle around the battery box. Typically, we see that reinforcement, it's a horizontal piece. It doesn't slope up into the door, so they're using some of the structure that's in the door for side impact to help them with their frontal impact requirements.
Actually, while we're looking at this, maybe there's another term that is for this type of structure. And I mentioned monocoque, but the English, or the name we usually use around here is a unibody. And that's kind of like what you're looking at here. You're trying to create something that will endure all crash issues and survive, keep the people inside survived, because of all these different brackets and whatnot that we're putting in to make sure that the car survives the crashes that some people are ultimately going to get into it. So that's back to the body in white thing. Unibody, monocoque, body in white, BIW, all these things are the same, and I just want to clarify that before I get a bunch of nasty grams. So anyway, but these little brackets that are going on here I mean, this really is massive, and I can't believe these cross car beams. Holy mackerel!
Yes, these the cross car beams that Sandy just referenced. There are 3 of them right here. These are all press hardened steel, so it's a process that will create a stronger steel when it's done. There's thermal quenching that goes on in the tool as it's being made. So this is used for side impact. So what side impact is, you're going 35 miles an hour sideways into a rigid pole that's 18 inches in diameter. So if it's to simulate if you went sideways and into a telephone pole as you're going down the road. So this is it's not a new requirement, but with BEV vehicles, it is a new area of focus because you have the batteries that are right underneath of this, and there's not a lot of room there to manage that impact. You've got about half the space that you used to have with an ICE vehicle to allow for impingement. So they have a lot more structure going on. We have these, as I said, these 3 crosscar beams. Then there is also martensinic steel. There's 3 pieces of martensinic steel that have been roll formed inside of the sill. That is to help both with the front impact and bringing the forces back through the vehicle, as well as the side impact to help absorb those forces.
Wow. Yeah. Let's talk about these roof rails here. First off, it's got 1 more than I'd normally expect. You got 3 here, and then you've got the header and the surround for the rear deck. This is again, because of the weight and whatnot, and the situations that happen with rollover. Like I say, this thing is ready for almost anything.
Right. It would be, again, more than a typical ICE vehicle. We have more weight in the battery pack, so we have to beef up not just for frontal impact, we have to beef up the roof as well.
One thing I don't think we've ever talked about is the dum-dum that's put up here to get rid of oil canning and noise. You can see it here if you look on the edge. You can see it coming up. This is kind of like, it's a glue, but it keeps everything from making noise. This one's got it as well. This one's a lot more rigid. So that's they really did a bang-up job on this. Huh, bang up. Let's use a different term. They did a really good job on this. Yeah.
All right. And if we take a second to look at the seat mounts for the front seats, you'll notice that there is what's called scalloping on the front and rear where the welds are. So the scalloping is where there's a weld right here, and then the scalloping, the material is drawn back in before the next weld. That's a weight savings opportunity and effort, and whoever the engineer was that did the rear seat mounts put it in, he was saving his grams that day. If we look at the rest of the vehicle, there is very limited use of scalloping. So there is a opportunity for weight savings throughout the vehicle. If just one guy does it, you're not going to get a whole bunch. It's just a little bit of steel here and there. You need everybody on the team to go through and scallop all of their components wherever it's possible. So it's an opportunity for a few more pounds to come out of the vehicle.
With aircraft, everything's scalloped because weight is so important. So you'd never see a rail like that hadn't been scalloped. They would use rivets as well, which are not as good as like what I would think a weld would be. But I was surprised to not see scalloping done on here because the car is so heavy. And by scalloping, that doesn't reduce its strength at all. It's just it's a good engineering trick for reducing weight.
All right, and as we look at the rest of the floor of this, it consists of 2 major panels. There's a front floor stamping and a rear floor stamping. So they've brought this into just 2 pieces instead of having multiple floor panels. There is a kick plate where the rear is up a little bit higher for the seat, but that's a a typical thing, but getting just one stamping that'll cover the entire rear of the vehicle and include the tub is a big piece and not something that we see in most vehicles, so it's something worth pointing out.
Well, the idea here too is that this is kind of shallow. It's not typical to what you'd normally see inside of a car. Usually there's a lot more contour, but because of the battery and the lack of the tunnel and whatnot, this makes perfect sense to try and stamp this out of one big piece.
Yep, and as we, is there anything else that you want to point out here, Sandy, before we move to the back of the vehicle?
I was going to talk about, or maybe we should talk about that rear seat bracket.
Okay.
That thing is kind of massive as well. Looks like, again, I don't really understand why it looks as big as it does. This is about twice what we would normally see for a rear seat. This is where the split is, right? So you've got one part of the seat that'll fold down. This is a 1/3, 2/3 kind of seat, and this bracket is gigantor. It could definitely tow the Queen Mary with that thing. So the other thing that I pointed this out before is the
LASD, liquid applied sound deadener.
Right, and that's how we get rid of the hum inside the car.
All right, and as we move to the back of the vehicle, you can see that there are these Ys that are integral to both sides of the rear quarter panel. Again, that's a crash enabler. It helps with rear impact. It'll transfer the load from the back up and into the hinge pillar, or up into, excuse me, the C-pillar. And then it also, when it does have to do roof crash, it'll transfer the load from the C-pillar down and into the quarter panels to help transfer the load around, so it's getting more paths for the load to go through, so you can spread it out some more. And also, when we are looking back here, we talked in a previous video about these nylon 6/6 pieces that are here that have the heat expanding foam in it. Ford is using these in a lot of places in this vehicle. We have found 18 of them so far, and there's probably some more that are hidden inside of panels that we can't get to. So that's a trick that they're using to cover up rat holes all over the place on this vehicle. And then one more thing back here, NVH is a big thing with electric vehicles not having the motor there. So we had panels that were inside the Model Y rear quarters that were foam cubes, and inside this one we have instead of a small foam cube, we've got that, and then we've got some more in here as well, if I can get to it. Just a little one right here. So we have much more expensive NVH
This is
going on in here. Is there, and there is one on each side. They have another one that was die stamped and then adhesive onto the back of the wheel well. So that is it's a piece that looks really clean. They've rounded the corners and everything, and it could have just been a simple square to get a little bit better, put more material in there. If you're going to use it for sound deaden a little bit more.
Or you could have just squirted it with some sound deadening foam, and it would have expanded to fill the void.
Yes.
For these small ones, I would never probably want to design it that way. And this thing here, I have no clue. This must be is this for tire flap?
Tire noise. Yep, it's on top of the wheel well. And there is another one on your side if you wanted to pull it out.
Nah.
It's going to be the same size, but it's a big piece of NVH.
Wow, it's light anyway. Yeah.
So I think that's all we had today, Sandy, for the body in white.
Wow, cool. Well, thanks very much, Ben, for walking us through there. And like I said, this just it just looks so massive. And I guess that's in a good way. I really like what they've done here for strength and rigidity. There is too many brackets, but I always say that. But for the most part, I really think that this has got safety built all over it. So
Right, everywhere where we see weight, most places I should say, where we see the weight, there's a reason for it,
Yeah.
and a crash scenario that they are protecting for.
yeah, yeah. So good job on the body in white. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll have more on the Mach-E. We're actually kind of winding down now. We're into the last and final phases. So we'll be bringing you the last bits and pieces. And for those of you who are buying reports, we'll try and have those out for you as soon as we possibly can. And you can contact us if you're into that. So anyway, I'm going to be taking that trip to on the Faraday shortly. So I'll be joining them up in Chicago with Corey, and we'll hopefully be able to tell you what it's like to sit in a ultra luxury vehicle. So anyway, have a great day. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.
Thanks.